Hey there! We're going to discuss the basics of a project charter. And in the Northeast, it may be pronounced a little bit different, like in Project Chata. All right, I know that's not very fun. But what is typically involved with a project charter? What does it do? It formally authorizes a project. Well, let's spell it right. I can't read that either. And it documents the initial requirements. These are high-level requirements. According to the PMBOK guide, and I tend to agree, there's no project without a project charter. So for every project, a charter is required, and it's a must-have. I like denoting must-haves as MH. You'll see that throughout our tutorials. How does the project charter fit into the overall knowledge area scheme of things? This represents the processes that are in PMBOK Guide's Project Integration Management knowledge area, otherwise known as KAs. And the first process is the Develop Project Charter. And of course we have other tutorials that discuss what a knowledge area is. Although we could present a project charter starting with the inputs and discuss the tools and techniques, why not start with the output instead? The project charter is typically a document, but it can be a movie, it can be a spreadsheet, even a PowerPoint. It really doesn't matter as long as it accomplishes the following goals. A project charter should include a project purpose or justification, should have the project's objectives. It's awful nice to have what the success criteria is, also the high-level requirements that we mentioned earlier, any overall risks that are important to know before you commence on getting a project funded, and it should produce a rough idea of what the schedule is and of course the budget. Always important to identify who the key role players are in a project. Okay, we've talked about the project charter. Let's talk about the tools and techniques associated with that. Generally, it's pretty simple. A common theme throughout project management is to use expert judgment. And this is where simple common sense and experience plays an important part of the overall project decision making. You tend to make better decisions when you include a number of resources. For example, key resources you should consider are your peers, consultants, definitely stakeholders, industry sources, and last but not least, subject matter experts. Okay, now what about the inputs? We've talked about the output, which is the project charter, and tools and techniques, where expert judgment plays a very important part. On the inputs, there's several. They don't have to include all these, but I wanted to state the main ones. Statement of work, which is also known as the SOW, and this includes the basic need, in other words, the why, the overall scope, the what, and also how it fits into the company department strategy. That's basically the connector to the mission. Another key input can be the business case. This determines a more financial basis as to why this project is needed, based on market demand, customer request, shift in technology, legal requirements. You get the idea. Contracts are typically needed when you have a customer obligation, and a contract may ultimately be the definitive source. One item that tends to be overlooked, but I want to bring it up, is organizational process assets. This is stuff that's used to provide necessary background information on a project, and it tends to include policies, templates, historical post-mortem information, as well as knowledge bases. All that can be vital to making sure you don't repeat the sins of prior projects. No tutorial is complete if we don't include things like pros and cons, in other words, the benefits and liabilities with any process that's used. One key benefit is that it establishes a written record. It reduces, and that's what the negative sign is, ambiguity. Provides the basic goal that acts as a referee when decisions have to be made throughout the project's life cycle. And we need to establish a beachhead or a foundation for the project. So those are key benefits. Put that A in there in between foundation. Now how about the cons? You know, it's interesting. There's really not many of those. But to produce a project charter, especially if you're a little intimidated and feel like you need to put too much information in there, that it takes far too much time. There's no time. Another con is that they can become way too detailed and they border on specifications, functional requirements. If that's the case, you've missed the point with the project charter. Let's go into what the impact is with Agile. The project charter provides the vision for a project. You really do need to make sure that this project fits into the overall company vision. Let's put some eyelashes on this eye too, so you know exactly what that is. Company vision. So the project vision right here needs to support the overall company and or department vision. And in the case of Agile Framework projects, the document can do double duty by qualifying for the project vision step, or, in the case of Scrum, step 0. According to Klein and Luden's book, Project Management Practitioner's Handbook, your goal is to include the project's vision in the project charter and to make sure the team has a clear understanding of how the project will support this vision. Ultimately, the project charter is clearly defined, summarized, and communicated and approved at a project kickoff meeting. Usually the project charter is clearly defined, summarized, communicated, and approved at the project kickoff meeting. In the Team Handbook by Peter R. Schultes, the kickoff meeting and getting the right stakeholders and project stakeholders together in a coordinated fashion is a critical role towards a project success. The project sponsor authorizes the project to commence by approving the project charter. So now you know.